Good morning, guys, and welcome to Unique Not Different with me, Shamla. And today I have Alicia Pacheco, who is the Care Helpers Planning Committee member for Care Helpers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. She also happens to be a special ed teacher of the Ministry of Education. On Thursday, the 6th of October, we celebrate World CP Day. And Miss Pacheco actually have a son that is cerebral palsy as well as autistic. So today we are going to discuss CP. So good morning, Alicia. How are you doing?
Hi, good morning, Shamla. Thanks for having me. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
It's my pleasure. So you being a parent of a child with two disabilities, but in particular with cerebral palsy, right? In terms of hearing a child having two disabilities, how did you, I guess, comprehend that and accept that? What was the stage going through that, and what was access to services like, and how did that change from, because your child is 15 years, from then
Mhm.
now?
Okay, hi, thanks. Well, the cerebral palsy would have been present from birth, so that would have been the first diagnosis that I got, and I had to deal with that. Autism, we didn't realize about the autism until he was much older, about 2 or 3, and he wasn't making eye contact, he wasn't communicating, speaking, or engaging the same way that another child would engage. Um, Services then, 15 years ago, it was difficult to access a diagnosis, first of all. It was difficult to access the services. Therapy, we had very few therapists, speech therapists, occupational therapists. We still do not have pediatric physiotherapy in Trinidad. So it was difficult. And there was a long waiting list for a lot of these, to see these professionals, because we had less than 10 of them in the country at the time. And also, disability was very new to some of the medical professionals, like the doctors and so forth you'll see in the hospital. They didn't understand what autism was. They didn't understand how the cerebral palsy or even autism would affect a child. Having a multiple diagnosis for any child, sometimes some of the difficulties are the same. For instance, cerebral palsy affects speech at times. Autism also affects speech and communication. So some of the difficulties may lap over in the disabilities, and you would need the exact same treatment, exact same intervention. Autism also affects mobility and motor skills, fine motor skills especially, the same way cerebral palsy affects. So my son is affected in the exact same way. He gets a double whammy with cerebral palsy and autism. Fast forward 15 years, doctors are a little bit more understanding of disabilities in the public system now. We have more pediatricians understanding of it, and some of the services are a little bit more accessible, but it is still mostly in the private domain, and it still remains very much inaccessible to families who cannot afford, because those services are very expensive. So imagine having to pay for speech therapy $300 an hour once a week, and having to pay for occupational therapy as well, $300 once a week. That's $600 only for two support systems per week. The average family and the average family income cannot afford that. So while we may have more professionals operating in the country, we still have the access to the service still not reaching the majority of persons who need it because of the price.
And you being a mother, what has your child teach you and change your perception in terms of disability, and what advice would you give to other parents who have children, or in general, who have children with disability?
Now, even though I'm a special education teacher by profession, and I was in that profession even before I had my son,
Wow.
so theoretically, I had a lot of the knowledge that would have prepared me to act, to know where to turn and what to do with him. But emotionally, I would have gone through the same thing every parent went through. going through 9 months of pregnancy, you want 10 fingers, 10 toes, you're already planning baby name, you're already planning child future, there will be the doctor, the lawyer, and so forth. And when you end up with a disabled child, some of those dreams and visions are lost, and a lot of parents enter into a period of grief. And some parents get stuck in a period of grief. And some parents end up in a situation where my child will never be able to do anything, and I'll never be able to do anything with this child, and so forth. So some parents go through a period where they get stuck and they do not move forward in helping their children to be participants in society, or doing what they can to help their students, their children do better, or even do whatever they can do. So
Yeah.
sometimes we become the over caregivers. We have older children with a disability and we have them stuck as if they're babies. We still treat them as babies, even though they may need a lot of care. We don't have to treat them as if they're babies. And sometimes we forget that they have personalities inside of those bodies. We focus on what the bodies can't do, and sometimes we do not focus on the personalities. So for my son, I felt I'm a single mother, and I felt that I would not be live in a prison of cerebral palsy and autism, in terms of locking myself in the house, not participating, not taking my son out. So I took my son out. I participated in every activity that I would normally participate in. Of course, I had to be an advocate for some of those activities, even within my family. I had to be an advocate for him to be included in birthday parties, included in things, and also just to tell people how to adjust the activities so that he can participate more. He did he played kiddies carnival, he did first communion, he goes to birthday limes, he participates in everything we have, everything that is part of my life. Take him to the grocery store and
I
so
think
forth.
that, and I think that is the main thing we learn here as well. You know, you're involved in being involved. But Alicia, we need to, I guess we need to break now. But I want to say thank you so much for coming, sharing your story. And I think the lesson here learned is that accept your child and don't treat them any different.
And don't treat them any differently, yes. And
Exactly.
let them do what they can do and let them shine. They need to shine and be part of society.
That is a great lesson. I learned that as well. And guys, before I go, I want to say that the Autistic Society of Trinidad and Tobago is having a free webinar on Wednesday, October 5th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. with Dr. Stacy Leger, an international neurologist who will be talking on autism and other related conditions. So you can visit their website, you can visit their Facebook page for further details. And I want to say thank you so much for tuning in to this week's segment of Unique and Different. Until next week, be good, be good. Bye, guys. Bye,
Bye
Alicia.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Trinidad and Tobago.